Afternoon, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about hand loading the 45 ACP. As I hand load all my ammunition that I shoot and my bulk ammunition that I keep in storage. As I said in my other videos, I don't carry for personal protection hand loaded ammunition because of the degrees of liability that go with it. Excuse me. But for bulk pack ammunition, or if you're wanting to do the end of the world, I just did a video that shows where you can save as much as $700 a thousand on loading ammunition, as opposed to buying it bulk. Now that doesn't count for your Winchester White Box, Wally World brand ammunition, but anyway, so let's get to it. For starters, Hornady's book tells us that the case trim length on 45 is .898, 898 thousandths. I'll use my caliper and I'll preset it, and I'll actually preset mine about a thousandth smaller, so I'll .897, and I'll turn it into what I call a go no-go gauge. I'll just take and run each round through the caliper. If it fits, I'll set it down. If it doesn't fit, now some of these have already been deprimed and we're thrown back in the boxes while I'm setting some to the front now, or to my right now. But I'll go through and I'll run them and I'll inspect each case as I run it through my go no go gauge. For me, 45 is prevalent enough extra brass that it's a little long. I don't bother trimming it. I just toss them. If the casings are excessively smashed, I don't bother with them. I throw them away. Little bit of, a little nick or ding here isn't a big deal. But one of the things you're going to run into with 45, and I should probably put this in the next level of the video, but I'm not going to, is the difference between a small pistol and large pistol primer. I have found casings from ICC and from Federal, which I don't know if Federal's a division, or ICC is a division of Federal, and I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see this. The one on the right is a small pistol primer, the one on the left is a large pistol primer, whole channel, and in the casings. Now that doesn't present a problem other than if you're not buying large pistol, or if you're not buying small pistol primers for whatever reason, you don't have a gun that uses them or whatever. So you just want to be careful you don't destroy your priming tool by trying to, or try and cram a large pistol primer into a small pistol primer channel. I don't have a preference as far as, I typically buy CCI Primers because they're about the best price. It doesn't bother me to buy Finoshi or Remington or Winchester. Primer's a primer. I've never had any problem with any primers that I know of. I'm not saying that I haven't had one go off, but I couldn't possibly tell you, or one not go off, but I couldn't possibly tell you who would have made that primer. I haven't had any real problems with any of my hand loads ever, as far as not discharging when the primer or when the firing pin hits the primer. There, I found one. Like that. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. To me, that's crushed enough, and especially at the very tip, where I don't want to let air or moisture get down in beside the bullet. So I'll just discard around it's crushed like that. Now the sizing tool will straighten that neck out. I really don't play with it. It's nothing for me to go out on a range and pick up 1,000, 1,500, 45 rounds. If you don't know some places to get, obviously a range is a great place to pick up brass, but you also find especially if you can't find brass prevalent, or you don't have a local public range, and the private range won't let you on there, you might visit with local law enforcement, especially small PDs around where you live. Typically they'll have a place where they go shoot. They're going to shoot all the popular calibers: 223, 45, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 357 SIG. And most law enforcement ranges I've been to, they don't get real excited about picking up the brass or reloading brass. A lot of the reason for that is you know, government, they get grants, and you know, the agencies are buying their ammunition for them to go out there and practice with. So ask around, talk to people. You can find brass if you're willing to look for it. When I did my video on loading brass, I did not figure the cost of buying brass into the price of my ammunition, because I've never bought any brass. I mean, I bought some precision rifle ammunition brass, but never any kind of real brass as far as the bulk stuff that I pack. I've never bought brass for that. You can, and if you get on like Gunbroker or eBay or one of them sites, you can probably buy bulk pre-shot brass that somebody's picked up off the range. And I'm constantly in competition with people that are picking it up to take it and clean it and sell it. If you're going to buy, you know, shot bulk brass, you might as well save yourself some time. Look around, because I'm sure it won't be any real, you know, more expensive. Look around, find stuff that's already been cleaned and or primed, or deprimed. So that's just one less step you'll have to do. This stuff here has already been run through my vibrating corncob cleaner. So I'm going to spend a couple more seconds here and remove some more. That's another small primer. Check a couple more casings, and then we'll go on to the next stage, which is going to be running them through the press. Okay, now we're ready to start depriming some casings here. Here I've got setting aside one of the small primers, and it won't matter to your depriming tool if it's small primer or large primer, so that's nothing you have to worry about for the depriming stage. When you run your press up, it should come up and just touch the bottom of your die, and it should bottom out when it does so. If you're not bottoming out, you need to readjust your die. Some people like to set theirs up essentially what's called short stroke, where they're just boom, boom, boom. I like to hit the bottom, that way I know I'm getting the casing fully inserted into the die, and that I'm getting the proper sizing on the neck of the casing. I use just Hornady's unique case lube. I'll put a little dab of it on my fingers, kind of get my finger kind of greasy. As I pick up each casing, it'll lube it. As you run them up into the die, you know, bottom it out, set one to the side, and just go on to the next one. If they're running up in there extremely easy, where you don't have to apply any downward pressure to your handle, you may have an issue with either the wrong die. If you can't get it to go in there at all, you may have an issue with the wrong die, or you may have something else going on. I've had casings shear off up inside that were cracked that I missed during inspection. That's happened once. But for the most part, you should have to apply upwards pressure, but nothing serious. Now, one of the questions I get asked is, you know, sizing the die can stretch the casing, and that's true. But what's one of the reasons why I set my go-no-go gauge in the beginning a thousandth smaller, which will take up, you're never going to stretch a casing as long as it's not completely damaged. I mean, if it's smashed, maybe, but I don't use smashed casings. So you're never going to stretch it more than a thousandth of an inch. I never have. I've never had a problem doing it this way. Somebody's liable to come on and tell me I could. You know, if I've never had that problem, doesn't mean you can't, so you need to do your own research. And that's the thing with anything I do a video on. You know, I try to do this to give people a way to, you know, get started, because when I got started loading ammunition, there wasn't nobody to help me. I had to read and figure it out long before the days of YouTube. And it's great now that there's videos for people to see and, get a, it's as good as being there, or the next thing to being there and doing it hands-on. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to deprime at least 100 bullets with 45, because I don't inspect each one looking for the small primer pockets. I usually, deprime a little more than what I intend to use on that loading session, which today my intention is just to go ahead and load about 100 rounds for the sake of the video. So I'm going to go ahead and sit here and deprime these, and then we'll be back for the priming stage. Well, I'm sitting here depriming and just thought of something else I'd like to tell you. You need to be careful, especially in today's age, with all the different, I call them wildcat calibers. I mean, you have your basics that have been around forever. You got 9, 40, 45, even the 357 SIG's been around for a while now. But then you got some of these other rounds, and I did pick some up, and I just went up and looked, and I can't find them, which bugs me. But like 45, Glock came out a few years back, several years back now actually, with the 45 Gap. Gap is Glock automatic pistol. It's their own version of, their what they thought was going to be, the next big thing. And it never really caught on that I know of. Nowhere in the circles where I shoot did the Gap catch on. But here not too long ago, I'm out picking up brass, and I picked up a ton of 45, and I get them back and I get them cleaned and I start sizing them, and I noticed I had some 45 Gap casings. Now they weren't that much different as far as complete case diameter and all that, but it's something you need to be aware of, and especially in the 9mm world. You have the Marvok ammunition, which is 9x18. You have the Luger ammunition, 9x19, and then you'll have like 380 ammunition. I sat here one day and deprimed a bunch of ammunition, and I kept coming across 380 ammunition that I had missed in the initial sort, because when you're doing a bulk sort, you're doing, for me, I don't separate as I pick it up. I don't separate 9, 40 and all that stuff. I just throw it all into a box. And then I kind of, when I get it back here, I'll separate it all out into individual boxes, and I had dropped a bunch of 380 unknowingly. I don't know if it was dark or if I was tired or whatever. But I had dropped a bunch of 380 into my 9mm canister. So redundancy is great. When I was running my no-go gauge over these casings, give me an opportunity. Some of them had already been deprimed, and if that means, like this one has been already deprimed, and if they've been deprimed, that means I've already sized them once. But a little bit of redundancy never hurts. The old adage, measure twice, cut once. Comes into lends to accuracy, lends to reliability, and most of all lends to safety. And we'll get into some more of the way I hand load safely to know that I'm never gonna double charge around and or undercharge around. I taught a concealed carry class this weekend. I went over a squib load, or Army calls it a pop and no kick, with the class. We had a guy that was, you could tell he wasn't big into the shooting world, but he spent some time shooting. He knew how to use his weapon system. I'm watching a lady that's having, it was really her first time shooting, and I kind of got my attention, not focused on her, but for the, pretty much focused on her. And, in the concealed carry class in Oklahoma, if they have a malfunction, I'm required to check their weapon system. Well, he raises his hand, I go down there, and he said it just didn't feel right. Just I had this little pop, I didn't have a big bang. In Oklahoma, they're required to bring factory loaded ammunition with them. This is my mistake, and it won't happen again. I was trusting people to bring factory loaded ammunition. I wasn't babysitting and checking ammunition. As it turns out, this gentleman had bought his concealed carry it's not really a test, it's just a shooting time to ensure that you can operate that weapon system safely. But he had brought hand-loaded ammunition that he had bought at a gun show. He didn't hand-load it himself, which to me is worse. But so what he had was a cartridge with no powder in it whatsoever, and the primer had forced the bullet down into the throat of the barrel, just, I'm guessing, just barely touching the lands and grooves. And when I first looked at it, I didn't even see the bullet. Then we tried to chamber up another round. It wouldn't go in there. Thankfully it didn't, otherwise we would have created a bomb. Again, my mistake. Won't happen again. Thankfully, I mean, nothing went wrong. Nobody was injured, or the gun didn't explode, but it very easily could have. So when I move into my loading stage, I will pour powder into a bullet. Or I'm sorry, I'll pour powder into a casing, and then from there the bullet goes on that casing before I set it down. I see a lot of guys loading videos on YouTube that they are sitting and powdering, or charging, if you will, 20 to 50 bullets a time, and then moving on to the bullet set stage. To me, that's a no-brainer. Don't do that. The potential for error is drastically opened up if you do that, and error when you're loading stuff that's inherently dangerous is potentially catastrophic, or life, not only life-changing, but it can be life-ending. So load each bullet one at a time when it gets to the powder stage. So that was what I thought of to tell you. I'm going to go ahead and finish depriming this run of bullets, and then we'll move to the priming stage. Alright guys, now we're ready to move into the priming phase of our loading process here. I was set up to load 9mm earlier, is why the powder and stuff's already here. But this is Hornady's priming tool. There's also another one made by RCBS. You put your primers into the tray, flip them over, dump them out, however you got to get them in there. Different ones, like these just happen to be Remington primers. I don't like the way they come out of their little box. They're kind of stacked in there on edge. So each individual primer, as that first one just did, I'll have to take and flip over. You can sit there and get them all facing primer side up. And you can see here, that's the way the primer's supposed to go in, with the open exposed side up, not the shiny side. If you're putting the shiny side up, you're going to have your primers in backwards. Kind of look at each one as I prime them. They should go in relatively easy. I mean, there needs to be a little bit of pressure, but this is where you need to pay attention to your small primer problem. I look at the bottom of each casing, look at my primer as it comes up. That one's got to be flipped over. Back it back down. I ensure with each primer that it's set and level across the top here. You don't want them in way too deep, and you don't want them in shallow either. As you go through and prime each one, this is another chance to inspect each casing hands-on. You got to pick each one up. You might as well look at each one. I actually will make a point to look in the I don't know if you'll ever be able to see it, but I look through the little hole into the make sure I can see daylight. That way I know there's nothing has managed to weasel its way down into the fire channel for the for when the primer goes off. Like I said, I'll get 100 of these done, and the reason why I do 100 is box primers come 100 to a box, bullets come 100 to a box. The way I buy them anyway. I mean, I know you can buy 500 round bricks, but the way I buy everything, it's all 100 at a time. So I'll do up 100 casings at a time, and then move on to the next stage of the loading. Take this opportunity. The load I'm loading here is what is the load we're loading here? 6.9 grains of VihtaVuori, which is Lapua's powders, N350. What I have determined here is this load works real good through any of my 45s, any of my 1911s, Glock 21, all the 45s I have. This load just seems to work beautiful through it. Now, if you notice from my other videos, or you may go notice from my other videos, I try to limit the types of powder that I buy. I have worked a load using VihtaVuori's or Lapua's N350. I load 9 with that powder. I load what is it, 4.9 grains of that same powder in a 9mm. I've got a load, which I don't have here in front of me, for 40 Smith & Wesson for that powder. This keeps me from having, you know, I obviously will have a bunch of powders laying around, but or not laying around, that I need for various calibers. But when I can get, you know, one powder loading, effectively loading 6 or 7 or 8 different rounds, or types of rounds, what that allows me to do is, when I decide I'm going to load bulk for a while, you know, I always keep a pound or two around for just what I call general loading. But if I'm getting ready to go shoot, or when I'm getting ready to start loading for you know, whatever, if I'm going to load bulk, that allows me to buy the 8-pound kegs or the 5-pound kegs, and then save myself some money, because it's quite a bit cheaper to buy it 5 or 8 pounds at a time, depending on, you know, the manufacturer, as it is to buy it, you know, a pound at a time. So this is the opportunity, you know, when you really setting yourself up to use, you know, the same powder for, in my case, I believe I have 5 or 6 different calibers that I've got a good effective load that runs in all my guns with this powder. Another reason I chose this powder is it's typically, compared to some of the other powder types out there, I typically am able to load less grains to get my desired velocities. If you're hand loading and you have not bought you a chronograph, you're kind of wasting your time. I mean, if bullet impact's all you're really worried about, then yeah, I guess you can go ahead and load for that. But velocities is, you know, a key factor, and especially loading for accuracy at ranges. So if you don't know your velocities, you can't determine what your bullet impact's going to be, you know, at longer ranges. Not real important for handguns, very important for rifles. But again, you know, I can take a load on the internet, or more to the point, a bullet off the internet, like the bullet. See, this is a direct copy of Hornady's XTP preloaded, factory loaded, whatever you want to call it, round. What I did is I went on there to their website, and they said, okay, you know, the Hornady XTP preloaded bullet as you know, has this velocity, or the XTP 9mm round has this velocity. Well, I've always liked Hornady's defensive level bullets. The XTPs are great. They mushroom out. They do great damage. Terminal ballistics are just awesome on them. So this gave me the opportunity to sit down and say, okay, now I need to match. I can buy their bullets, so that's easy. Casing's a casing, that's easy. Primer's a primer, that's easy. Now what I need to do is I need to work out their velocities, because obviously they have put a lot of time and research and money into deciding at what velocity their bullets work the best, as far as, you know, primary and secondary wound channels. So instead of second guessing that and trying to, you know, see how fast I can make this bullet go, well, and that's what a lot of guys are doing. They'll get in there and they'll see how much powder they can cram in a casing and how fast they can get the bullet going out of the end of their barrel. And that's great if that's what you're into, but not always is faster better. You know, in the 45, I'm 99.9% sure, I have no way to verify this, but I am willing to bet you money that Hornady has put a lot of time and money into determining what velocity this 45 round that I'm about to load should be running at the barrel to get the best effect out of that bullet on a soft target. So why would I want to basically ignore all that money they spent? Why would I want to ignore what they're doing when they make arguably some of the best ammunition around? So instead of ignoring it, I just copied it. Like I said, get online, find their specific bullet that I'm using, which is 230 grain, 451 caliber XTP jacketed hollow point. The actual number on it is 45160 is the item number, is the bullet I'm loading, which just happens to be the exact same bullet they load in their defensive ammunition. So like I said, you get in there, take what they've already done, copy it. That allows me to, I think we figured out that this load that I'm loading, if you went out and bought them from Hornady and they come 20 in a box, would cost you right at $990 a thousand, 99 cents a bullet. Being that I don't pay for casings and I don't figure casings into my cost of bullets because I don't buy them, it was like $700, and I don't have the figures in front of me. You can catch them on the other video, but it's like $725 or $745 less for me to load the exact same bullet at the end of the day. I'll have the same velocity. I have the exact same bullet. And it's a round that you can pretty much guarantee if Hornady's going to tell you, yeah, this is the velocity that you need to have at the muzzle. What that also tells you is this is the velocity at the muzzle you need to have. That bullet is going to work relatively or consistently effective in just about every gun on the market, because they don't build Glock ammunition, or they damn sure don't build your Glock ammunition, or they don't build your 9mm ammunition for your, they don't build your 1911 ammunition. They build an ammunition that generally works in all kinds of weapon systems, and they've been tested. And they test them in Glocks, they test them in Colts 1911s, they'll test them in SIGs, they'll test them in every 45 caliber gun they can get their hands on, because they need to know that that ammunition is going to work in everything, not in just your gun. So these guys go out and they build these custom loads that is just perfect for their specific ammunition or their specific gun, and that's great. And I have custom loads for my match guns that that's the only load I run. They're the only gun I run that load in. But as far as building a load that I can build bulk, and that I know I can throw it in any gun I've got, that's why I try to mimic the different factory rounds, because I know that if I'm getting a muzzle velocity, and I try to find a comparable gun, and usually you can find online what gun they base their muzzle velocity on of. So if you can find a comparable gun to that and get to that same velocity, what you're ensuring is the recoil of that specific shell should be adequate to cycle any automatic weapon system. It should be adequate to to ensure that you're going to get a good quality snap out of the recoil enough to completely cycle it, not let it short stroke. And the other thing you're going to be trying to ensure yourself is you're not going to have an overcharged round. That can be as potentially as bad as having an undercharged round, even in combat. You can break your weapon system or whatever. So the whole point in this is consistency and reliability is what I try to go for when I reload. If I wanted to make these bullets go as fast as I can possibly make them, I would just simply pour as much powder as I could possibly, or quote unquote safely, get into a casing and slap a bullet on it and call it a day. But I'm going to get set up for the next stage here, and I'll be right back. Alright guys, now we're going to get into the loading stage. Get readjusted here a little bit. Apologize for not being ready. We're going to get into the loading stage here of the 45 ACP. We're going to start by re-zeroing our scale, which is done. Not quite done actually. As barometric pressure changes in your area, so will level on your scale. Might not mean much to a lot of people, but to me it does. Make sure we got a little bit of over travel here, and we got plenty. Today we're going to be loading 6.9 grains of VihtaVuori N350. Here's our powder, VihtaVuori N350. This is going in Winchester 230, or I'm sorry, Hornady 230 grain XTP jacketed hollow point. So 6.9 grains. Each one of the notches on the big scale is 5 grains. So put that, give it a little shake, and that makes 6, and 9 little dots makes 6.9. This is not at the dangerous end of the spectrum for this round. It allowed me to match Hornady's defensive ammunition speeds out of a ran these, I guess I tested these with the Sig Sauer 1911 is what I use to max velocities. So we got our little powder dump tool, and now excuse me, my dies are usually typically set where they're ready to go. I like them so they bottom out, so I have to use a full stroke every time on my press. So we're going to grab, and this is a little scoop that comes in the 45 box in Lee's press and Lee's dies. So we're going to trickle ourselves 6.9 grains in here. Now actually, when I go loading these faster, I'll use my mechanical thrower to get the tray to about 6.8 grains, and then I'll trickle the rest. But I'm going to pull out around. I'm going to ensure, look down in there, ensure I don't have anything blocking the firing channel. I'm going to put my shell into my little scoop deal here, or my funnel, and I'll dump this round, or dump the powder into the round. So now that I've done that, I am not going to do anything till I put a bullet on this casing. So with this, I've backed off my die from where it was last time because I'm looking for a desired depth. What I use for a COL is 1.201 inches. Maximum COL for a 45 is 1.275, I believe. Look at the book here. Yeah, 1.275 is what Hornady's book says is maximum. I see these a little bit deeper. So we're going to look at this one, and we're well within Hornady's specs, but not mine. We are at 1.252 right now. So I'll give that a little twist. Now we're at 1.248. Give it another little twist. Now we are at 1.240. Give it a bigger twist. Go slow when you're getting your die set up, because it's a whole lot easier to add a little more to a bullet as far as seating depth than it is to take it away. Once you get your bullet seat exactly where you want it, then if you don't touch your die, everything will be fine. And if you're just taking your dies out and putting them in a box, and then you don't really have to readjust this as far as I did. I'm doing it for the sake of the video. Right now I'm at about 1.222. And I don't put these bullets as deep as this deep for anything other than I know I get good magazine flow through all the variety of 45s that I have. This allows this bullet to run whether I'm running in a Glock, whether I'm running in a 1911, or no matter what gun I'm going to run it in. I'm going to get good bullet flow through the magazines. Nice little bump and we'll be good. As I said in my other video, you can load this round, and this makes this a very effective defensive round. I mean, it is exactly what Hornady loads for their, as far as speed wise, it's a different powder, what Hornady loads in their defensive XTP rounds. As I said before, you can build this load for about $700 less, $1,000, than what you can buy actual XTP defensive ammunition, buying it straight from Hornady. Again, I don't calculate the cost of brass because I pick up all my brass, absolutely all my brass. I don't buy brass for bulk ammunition. But by doing it this way, what this allows me to do is practice with a defensive level ammunition. No matter what I'm doing, I'm practicing with, you know, good speed loaded, good velocity loaded ammunition, and that I know is going to be combat effective in speed. And then as I practice, my recoil is the felt recoil on all those weapon systems are the same no matter what I'm practicing with. Or, you know, when you go out and you buy that 115 grain or a 230 grain ball loaded down Winchester white box stuff, you're not going to get the desired speeds and felt recoil out of your weapon system as you do if you shoot defensive ammunition. It's not possible. You know, if you're carrying plus P plus ammunition, you need to be training somewhat with that ammunition, because bullet impact's going to be negligibly different on your, or noticeably different on your, from, you know, 115 grain ball up to 100 and, I'm sorry, I've got 9mm on the brain. It's going to be noticeably different between 230 grain ball that you buy at Walmart and something along the lines of Winchester, or I'm sorry, Hornady tap ammunition, or, you know, whatever the defensive round you're going to run is. Now, I've compared bullet impact from these rounds to that of you know, stuff you buy from either Hornady or, you know, some other kind of critical defense ammunition or duty ammunition. And this stuff runs real consistent through my guns compared to the stuff you can buy just over the counter, you know. And I've never understood why people will buy 147 grain in a 9mm, 147 grain defensive ammunition, and then go out and practice with 115 grain, and then think that, you know, they could, you know, possibly even take a headshot. You know, I want to know that my bullet impact is perfect if I need to take a headshot on some dirtbag that is you know, holding my kid hostage. So, you know, this way it allows me to ensure that I'm getting a good load every time by weighing these loads each and every time, and weighing you know, I'm precision. I know that I've got the best possible chance of this load, you know, overlapping holes or whatever. And more to the point, I know when I put my sights on a target, the bullet impact is going to be the same as it was when I was out on the range yesterday, the day before, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, whatever it was. This is a cheap effective way to be able to practice with what you're going to carry. Now, like I said before, I do not carry hand-loaded ammunition in my weapon system for defense. I carry store-bought ammo for the legal liability of it. Honestly, with the Hornady casings that I have, it would be relatively impossible for, I mean, I could carry this stuff if I want to dig through here and find the different casings I have that are actual Hornady casings. And it would be virtually impossible for anybody to tell the difference between something I bought and something I loaded from Hornady. But, like I said, I go out and I buy, you know, the needed amount of Hornady ammunition to put in my gun, but then I can go out and practice with the exact same bullet, the exact same velocities, and that I'm getting in my defensive ammunition. So that's one good reason to do it. Alright, now here's a problem that I'm going to correct. That bullet's not wanting to go down in there and seat. So I'm going to drop that. I'm going to find my little bullet sketch here, which, if you're not careful, especially with 45, you can create one of those. If you can see it there where I crushed the casing down trying to put that bullet in. One of the easy ways around that is you take your little pocket or your little reamer here and just run it along the edge of that casing, which will ream that out and give it a little bit of a channel to start running down. Apparently with this ammunition I'm going to have to do that every time, because I just crushed that one while I was loading, and now I was about to crush another one. Give it that little ream so that bullet gets a good start down in there. If you're having to force it and you're shaving lead off of the, or shaving the jacket off the bullet, ultimately what you're going to have is a man, it just ain't going to go. Ultimately what you're going to have is a bullet. We're going to set that one to the side and find a different one. Ultimately what you're going to have is a bullet with a different mass, and bullet impact is not going to be the same. So hand-loading ammunition, slid right in. Hand-loading ammunition is all about consistency. We're right on the money as far as our length. So that's why, to me, it is very important to have the same effect every time on when I'm loading. I don't want, you know, a tenth of a grain of powder matters to me. The bullet going in a little deeper or not quite as deep, or a little tighter or not quite as tight, matters to me, because all that's going to matter, all that's going to transition into a you know, a difference in accuracy. So that's what I do to load the 1911, or I'm sorry, 45 rounds. Got any questions or comments? Love to hear them. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you like the kind of videos I'm putting out, come back and see what I do next. The big thing is, guys, do what you're going to do, figure it out, and do it the same way every time. I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that I have the greatest load in the world for the 45. It's just the one I prefer. It is not as hot as you can possibly load it. I don't care about how hot it is. For me, like I said earlier, is I want the speeds that Hornady is running their ammunition through. That way there's a real good chance that I'm going to get the exact same expansion that they put all the money in the R&D for. You know, they've spent a lot of money developing this bullet to perform a certain way, and now I want them to I want my bullets to perform exactly as theirs do. I want the felt recoil to be the same, and I just bumped my scale, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure we're still level. When in doubt, check it again. Let's see if that made my level change at all. And that little bump did bring it a little off, or the barometric, a lot of people don't worry enough about barometric pressure. We've got a storm front moving in, and our barometric pressure is going to be changing pretty regularly, about every half hour. It'll be noticeable on a scale right now while this storm front's coming in. So, it may be just a difference in a tenth of a grain, but if I'm going through all the trouble to load this accurately, a tenth of a grain matters to me. So, things to think about, things to, you want to keep your ammunition 100% consistent. Weight will never change. Just because the barometric pressure is changing the weight of my scale, or the viewable position of my scale, the scale is still going to measure 6.9 grains if I have it properly set up. If I don't properly set it up and its barometric pressure changes, the actual weight of the powder going in the bullet is going to change. This is a huge issue on electronic scales, that some of these electronic scales are smart enough to tell you that, hey, you need to re-zero the scale because barometric pressure has changed, or something has changed, altitude, something will change. Whereas in the old style of loading, that's why handguns and guns in the Old West were not as precision, is because when they loaded, they weren't able to load as precision as we can get today, and that's where one of the advantages of modern technology. So anyway, got any questions? Love to see them, love to hear them. I'm gonna, went way too far now. I'm gonna go ahead and dump this load and get this video processing, get it up on the internet this evening. By the time I connect all the segments and watermark it and all that, it'll take a little while. So I appreciate you guys watching. Shoot safe, be careful. Never shoot anybody else's hand loads. And get out to the range, practice, have some fun. Be ready for whatever's coming down the road. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a good day.